I couldn't pick up a hand towel off the ground like a normal person would to like bend over and pick it up. I had to do this like sort of like just like plie and like, balancing act just to pick up something off of the ground. Typically, like I recover pretty quickly from just injuries in general. I never really had a severe injury until I figured out like, oh, okay, this is actually kind of long lasting. This is pretty severe. So now I needed that extra layer of help.
So many of my patients kind of come to me initially and they've done all the correct steps. They've done physical therapy, they've tried acupuncture, they've tried massages, and they still just haven't been able to recover from their injuries, whether that's a lower back injury, a meniscus tear, a rotator cuff tear. So pairing the BPC-157 and the thymosin beta, what they're doing is they're forming more blood vessels, which then brings more blood and nutrients to the damaged tissues to allow it to repair. It's also decreasing inflammation by lowering cytokines. So by pairing the two together, you're really getting this regenerative repair of all muscles, tendons, and ligaments in the body. My name is Vanessa Leal. I'm one of the providers here at Eternity Health Partners, and I'm here with Lindsey, who initially came to us when the practice opened for blood work and has come back years later in regards to achieve certain goals, body composition, anti-aging, and recovery with peptide therapy.
I'm glad to be here and just excited to have this discussion here with you. Like you had mentioned too, I just came to you because I had recent injury, and this was actually probably a little bit more than a few months ago. This was back in November. I had an injury, but it took me a little bit to sort of ask for that help. I do a lot of work, like foundationally speaking. So I eat right, and then I do all these modalities like, cold plunge or saunas or PEMF mats. And so I was just trying to throw the whole kitchen sink at it when I had this initial back injury. And typically, like I recover pretty quickly from just injuries in general. Like I never really had a severe injury until I figured out like, oh, okay, this is actually kind of long lasting. This is pretty severe. So now I needed that extra layer of help. And, mostly because I am just like a very active person. And also, let's face it, like who wants to just be in pain for so long, trying to just do it, in a way that's like, yes, time heals, but also you can, help support that time and expedite the time with certain, certain help with such as the peptides.
A little bit about peptides is they are a chain of amino acids or the building blocks of proteins, and how and what they do in our bodies act as biological messengers. So they can help improve recovery, repair, anti-aging and metabolism, and more. Some of the peptides we initially discussed was BPC-157, thymosin beta 4, GHK-Cu, MOTS-c, and NAD.
Yes, exactly. And I felt just really comfortable, obviously, just sort of taking your lead on this, Vanessa, because I've done blood work with Eternity Health Partners before too. And so you guys have that information.
Yeah. And, Lindsay, yourself and so many of my patients kind of come to me initially and they've done all the correct steps. They've done physical therapy. They've tried acupuncture. They've tried massages, and they still just haven't been able to recover from their injuries, whether that's a lower back injury, a meniscus tear, a rotator cuff tear. And that's where those two peptides out of the few we put you on really help with both localized and systemic recovery. BPC-157 was initially studied in the gastric lining or the gastric juices in the stomach, and it does help a lot with gut and wound healing. But how it works is it does help with anagenesis as well as thymosin beta 4. And so what they're doing is they're forming more blood vessels, which then brings more blood and nutrients to the damaged tissues to allow it to repair. It's also decreasing inflammation by lowering cytokines. We do know that if the body's inflamed, it cannot heal properly. And so pairing the BPC-157 and the thymosin beta, how they differ a little bit is the thymosin TB-beta-4 helps with migration of cells, and that helps more with systemic wound healing, so bigger muscles and tissues. So by pairing the two together, you're really getting this regenerative repair of all muscles, tendons, and ligaments in the body. And most patients, will feel great or an improvement within that first 1 to 2 weeks. But we do advise that patients take it for 6 to 8 weeks. When did you start feeling better? When did you start feeling the results of the peptides?
Yeah, pretty much almost immediately, kind of within that 1 to 2 weeks part. But my body does respond pretty fast, and so I don't think that like everybody's might respond that way, but mine did, just because I'm very much into wellness, and so I eat right, I work out right, and so anything that is like a little off track from my normal wellness routine, I'll always feel and know and adjust, and I'm just very in tune with my own body. So when I introduced peptides, that was definitely something that had changed like within 1 to 2 weeks. And like you had mentioned too, it was something that I knew that I needed, that was systemic, and especially when it comes to inflammation. And it's almost like it just like lowered inflammation, but kept just the right amount of inflammation, because inflammation actually can be, good and beneficial for that healing process, but it lowered it just enough so that it wasn't this like chronic or, stopping anything from healing or recovery or any of this nature. And so when that did happen, like, because it was almost like I was stuck. I didn't want to do any more like movement, or like I said, modalities that would like perhaps make things worse, because sometimes you could take a good thing and it can make it worse, such as movement, where it's like, oh no, like I didn't mean to like cause more, inflammation. And so what I needed was a really restful recovery where peptides would just help you in that active recovery state where you didn't really need to do much. And inflammation was one of the major things too that also led me to seek this sort of help and support, because, I am pretty like, I can get inflamed quickly. I've just been a martial artist and gymnast since I was 5. And so just like I've taken my body through the ringer. And so I can easily get inflamed. And so this one was just kind of like chronic and significant. And so I felt, yeah, just kind of reaching out to you guys. But I guess like what I think was probably the most helpful was the stack of it. And like you had mentioned too, with the TB-500 and the BPC, even the MOTS-c, which I don't think maybe you shared about either, but I thought that like those 3 specifically too, with that stack really, yeah, got me from like one level to the next, like instantly.
Yeah, you're incredibly right. MOTS-c is actually released naturally when we exercise. And, when we exercise, we actually damage muscle, and that can cause inflammation. But then adding peptides just helps the body recover more effectively and more efficiently. And we do need inflammation, right? It comes for our immune system. It does protect us from all these other pathogens and toxins that we get to expose to on our daily basis. But yeah, in regards to MOTS-c, it's great for body composition as well as energy. What it's really doing at a cellular level is increasing what we call the AMPK pathway. That really increases the energy in the body and our metabolism. So it's almost like an exercise mimetic. So it really can help with performance and endurance and decrease fatigue and improve recovery in the body. It's actually a mitochondrial derived peptide. And so it does support our mitochondrial health, which is the powerhouse of the cell we get from our mother at birth. So it really also helps with anti-aging. It also can help how we metabolize glucose and help regulate our insulin sensitivity. So those 3 kind of can allow patients to notice an improvement in their energy, body composition, as well as even their blood sugar.
Yeah, and I think that really helped too, because I was also nervous because I've just been moving my whole life. And so then, if I come to a spot where I have had like a really bad injury where, I mean, I couldn't pick up a like a hand towel off the ground like a normal person would to like bend over and pick it up. I had to do this like sort of like just like plie and like, balancing act just to pick up something off of the ground. And that is, like I said, by far one of the most severe injuries I had in a very long time. And so this also meant yeah, not moving. And like I was never used to like just not moving my entire life. There wouldn't be like 24 hours that go by where I didn't move. And so yeah, so it was a little scary. And we know how much that, exercise keep us healthy. And so it almost like put me in a state of, and I don't know if this is the right way to use it, but like active recovery by like having these supportive, peptides just sort of like help, like just kind of like keeping me at active recovery. So it wasn't like I was just totally, a couch potato and just waiting for time to pass. So it was very helpful to not feel like, oh, now I'm starting all the way from, square one.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of peptides is most, not at all, are naturally occurring in the body. And unfortunately, like our hormones, they just decline as we get older. One of the other peptides you're on is NAD. NAD is a cofactor to ATP, and ATP is what pretty much gives every one of our cells energy. And that declines by 40% around the age of 40 and 50. So it just makes it harder for our DNA to repair. So that's why we start to then have issues with, like you mentioned, endurance, recovery. The brain fog might start to come. We might have fatigue. Our metabolism slows down. So our body, even though, like you mentioned, you're doing all the right things. And I have so many patients that, they've been athletes, they were trainers, and then they've hit this point in their life where the things they were able to do in their 20s and 30s, it's taking more time, or they're not able to recover as they did when we were younger. And it's due to deficiency of these peptides or supplements or hormones. And so that's what we're doing here at Eternity Health Partners. We're trying to put it all together and kind of give you this bigger picture of how we can improve your cellular health.
Yeah, and I think I just turned 40, so definitely like recovery is different when you age, even, when you do take care of your body like for a lifetime. And so I think I really appreciated that more too, is what it did for me mentally. And like there's so much more. Like I could probably talk for hours about like the spiritual journey that I went through, like of being injured and not being able to be as active and doing a lot of introspection. And of course, like, having certain things that I was doing to like help keep my body feeling good and my mind feeling good. But I think it was also, yeah, not only supportive to injury recovery and that expediting the process of just like, like staying in a capsule of just like not feeling, super injured, but like just recovery quickly, but also like mentally speaking too. So it wasn't just physical, it was mentally speaking. I feel like, yeah, the NAD and even the glutathione, it's just like, having those anti-inflammatory process and creating that energy to have such a stable mindset, because I know people who suffer so many injuries. It's just like, then they can go into a bad place within, in their mind. And this just kept it, more positive, more encouraging, more like, okay, I'm seeing progress. Sure. Like I would love to have recovered in 24 hours, but no matter what you do, even with the peptides, that's not going to happen. But I definitely feel like now I am like pretty much almost at full capacity. It was just like that huge shift in just like mental, like, hey, you're going to be okay. And you have the like mental energy to like kind of support yourself to get you through from like day to day. And then just also, that sort of like drive and encouragement.
Yeah, so many good points there, Lindsay. We never want, peptides are incredible and they can be life changing, but we don't want to break that core foundation, like you mentioned, sleep, diet, and exercise, and trying to lower our stress and regular central nervous system. Those are always going to be the core foundations of health. But what peptides are, they're a kind of another tool in your toolbox to really accelerate your day to day and your health. And you mentioned one of my favorite peptides is glutathione. Glutathione is the master antioxidant. It's made in our liver. And our liver really detoxes our body. And in today's society, we're just exposed to so many toxins, what we're putting on our skin, what we're exposed to walking outside, what we're eating and digesting. And so I inject glutathione Monday through Friday just to really support my liver, to remove toxins, to remove inflammation from the body. It is probably not one of my favorite peptides. The second one is the one that you also took, because, we as women too, we want to age gracefully. And so GHK-Cu is one of the most popular regenerative peptides. It's very popular
Yeah.
with my female patients. I take it as well. And it's really great for skin, hair, and nail health. It really does stimulate more collagen and elastin in our skin, which, collagen unfortunately does decrease as well as we age. It also, like other peptides, stimulates anagenesis. So it does bring more blood vessels and blood flow to the scalp. So it does not only thicken the hair, but it keeps the hair in the growth phase. So it really does help support our hair and our skin health. And it can even give us a glow because it helps hydration and moisturize the skin. So that's probably my second favorite peptide. I don't know how you felt on, because I know regeneration, anti-aging was one of your goals as well.
Yeah, definitely. I felt like I did want to try the GHK-Cu, and for like, yeah, that was almost instant. Like I could see sort of like the shine and the moisture, and it was just like it was definitely a glow. And also that was also partly too because for injury recovery as well too, because that could aid in just faster recovery and healing as well. I mean, sure, many people take it because like it's like the beauty peptide, right?
Yeah.
Which I say that in quotations because that is what it's called, and it does magic wonders for that reason. But also, yeah, it also I think helped as a stackable in what I was taking. And on that note too, because it is becoming so popular, so I must admit that I was like, I'm a skeptic when it comes to anything anybody, wants to give me for my health or tell me for my health. And like, or just always grown up that way. And I think it just kind of like dates all the way back to like over 20 years ago. I was diagnosed with celiac disease, and, there was lots of doctors throwing stuff at me and, and medications and all these things when all I needed to do was just sort of like swap my diet, and all of a sudden the healing began. And that was sort of also where my skepticism began, of just like, hey, okay, I can heal myself. And and then just if I did a little bit more research on it, and just wanting to ask more questions too. And so it wasn't to totally deny what people were telling me, but it was just like I had a lot more but whys and questions that would often frustrate people. But from that respect, I think that's sort of where I grew into this space of like always asking these questions. And so I just, I learned about a lot about the body and wellness and whatnot. And so, especially today, because people are selling peptides all over now, right? And so that's kind of a little bit scary because there's so many counterfeit products out there that it's quite scary. And I think there is also skepticism out there too of like, oh, like peptides, it's an injectable, like what are we really injecting our bodies with? And so the reason why I did this route was not only because, peptides like have been tested on for quite some time. And so there's, especially like, BPC-157, like there's like, you can definitely see that it's helped with injury recovery. But also because I have been in touch with Eternity Health Partners for probably like over a decade, maybe like 15 years now. Because 15 years ago, when I was eating mostly a vegetarian diet, which now I'm eating mostly like animal based, so like meat forward and whatnot, but mostly vegetarian, like fish diet, I was lacking in B12. And then I had started, and so when I got my blood work done, like 15 years ago, whatnot, during that time period, then it was like, oh, well, you're low in, B12 and your T3 is low. And so then we kind of started taking some, B vitamins and stuff like that. And it did help during that that period of time. And I felt great. Like my energy was better. And so Eternity Health Partners met me where I was at then. And knowing that, like, I even did my due diligence before then. And so I knew, I trusted them and where they were getting their sourcing from, and just like, making sure it was a reputable source and not this like kind of black market stuff that's going on now. But basically then, fast forward 15 years later, now I have this injury that had happened. And I knew exactly kind of who to reach out for. I'm like, well, I trusted them before. Let me just, double check and make sure that we're still in alignment. Our values are in alignment. The quality of, our sourcing is still in alignment. And it sure was, so then I felt comfortable immediately rolling back into it. And then, like I said, I'm like, I didn't even know I was taking like, these peptides before. And now it's like a thing, peptides here, peptides there. So anyways, I guess like my question is maybe to help people too, that yes, like it helped support me during a time of recovery, of injury recovery, as well as certain goals, but also more so like maybe to also help people to not only like test themselves, like their own blood work, because that could have an impact on what they do take, but not to just listen to others who are just like, oh, take this peptide for this and take this peptide for this. And then also like, where do you source it from?
Yes. So many things to unpack there, but so many good points. So yes, kind of going back to GHK-Cu, it does also have anti-inflammatory properties as well. So that's why patients will kind of stack it or add BPC-157 and thymosin beta 4 together. We're calling it the glow stack, and it's kind of like an internal, external regenerative peptide stack. But you're 100% right. Peptides can be life-changing, but we still don't kind of want to forget about the foundations, right? And so that's why here at Eternity Health Partners, we still encourage our 9-page comprehensive blood panel. Because like you said, you can be deficient in B vitamins, D vitamins, your omega-3s, your hormones. And even if you take these stack of peptides and you're not feeling the changes, it's because we're missing the foundation. We have to address your cellular health before we put you on peptides. And unfortunately, yes, we are seeing a lot of buzzwords around peptides. And unfortunately, what we're seeing is a lot of people are sourcing their peptides internationally. And we are seeing additives or peptides combined in one vial. So you really want to do your research, not only about your peptides, but your health in general before you purchase peptides of where you're getting them from. And we've been using the same compounded pharmacy since the practice opened 10 years ago. And like you mentioned too, I was trained in Western medicine, but now working as a functional provider and trained in functional medicine. But I don't think we educate patients enough. Patients don't understand what is going on in their blood work and at their cellular health. And so that's what these initial consults are, is I spend an hour to an hour and a half with my patient going page by page, step by step in their blood work and trying to explain to them what is going on in their body and correlating that to their symptoms. And so you're 100% right. And I love when patients do their own homework and come to me with questions that we can address and explain together. I actually really appreciate that. So we can kind of clear the air. And I work with patients. Some want to do peptides, some want to do hormones, some want to just do supplements. And you come in with your goals like you did, and we go from there. We figure out what the best approach is for you. And I tell my patients, I'm just more of an educator. You're in the front seat driving the car and I'm in the back, and I'm going to educate you about ways I can improve your health and help you there. But at the end of the day, it's what feels right for you based on your core values.
Yeah. And I love that. And it's so different than, you know, uh, Western med these days, are just, feeling like you're constantly getting medication thrown at you or pushed at you. It's not, you know, and it's not a collaborative team effort. It's almost like, well, if you don't take my advice, then whatever, and I don't love that. It's dismissive, but I definitely think that the moral of the story too is like, blood work is something that is major. Eternity Health Partners even presented it to me. It's just like, always like test and don't guess. Like you can't go wrong with testing because the data shows.
Yeah, I love that saying. And unfortunately, sometimes we're not testing enough. We're testing the basic panels and we're not getting enough an idea or a picture that's going on in the body. So yes, test, but make sure that you're getting that comprehensive blood panel that allows us not to guess anymore and figure out what your body exactly needs. And I love that. I do want patients to come at that first initial encounter and they're like, this looks like a foreign language to them. But with time and education, they can now understand their blood work and they know what they want is optimal. And that's a big thing for me too. And I think sometimes, unfortunately, we're just not getting enough education, that we're not understanding what's going on in the body. So we might be resistant to, take these certain supplements or medications or peptides. But, you know, blood work, adequate blood work, and education can go a long way for longevity and patient cellular health. One of the beauties and the main goal that we believe in functional medicine is finding the root cause. And in order to find the root cause, we have to dive deep. And so that's why we start with our 9 pages of comprehensive blood panel. And I do try to paint this picture for my patients of what's going on in the body based on their blood work, their symptoms, their past medical history. But sometimes we do have to dive deeper. And your blood work gives us little keys, and it helps me as a provider figure out what additional diagnostic testing we could offer you here at Eternity Health Partners. If you have or you've been diagnosed with autoimmune disease, I've had women come in that say they have lupus, and we've run a test called AVISE, which has a higher sensitivity and specificity for lupus, and their lupus test has come back completely negative. And the inflammation and their ANA markers were elevated because it was coming from the gut. Um, and so I've been doing a lot about gut health. And we're going to do another Riverside video about gut health, which we're going to explore all the gut health. But gut health can be life changing for men and women. It produces 90% of our serotonin, our happy hormone. 70 to 80% of our immune system comes from our gut. So offering additional diagnostic testing for autoimmune disease, gut health, even looking at mitochondrial dysfunction, epigenetics, how are your genes working and methylating? It really allows me to dive deeper and even provide you with adequate care to which peptides would be best for you based on blood work and that diagnostic testing.
Right. Or even maybe, none at all, right? Maybe it's just more foundational. Maybe it's just about like your train. Maybe it's just like, hey, you need to sleep more. But still, I think the point is too, is that you would never even get that much of a comprehensive blood plan, right? You throw out also that word too, comprehensive blood panel. Well, it's like, wouldn't that typically be what you get from your doctors too? No, you're getting more of just this basic panel. And then if you want anything else, such as a further deeper scope that you guys do at Eternity Health Partners, and you actually suggest it as opposed for us to trying to like pry it out of our doctors, like method, you're asking them, hey, like, okay, like, sometimes like even the thyroid panel, it's just like, oh, it's just TSH, but then they don't do the free T3, which is, your precursor to like the low testosterone and all, like, so you just don't know actually where you're at, because you could be in the safe and the normal zone, but really like underneath it all, the systemic, the origin, the root cause is screaming for help. And so I think that you guys do a really good job in just going through an actual comprehensive blood panel. And like you said, like pages and pages of it. And then really also are very helpful in sharing the data, the results, and making sure that we understand it. And once again, like, I go back to like kind of the Western med docs. It's just like, oh, okay, knock, knock, knock next door. Then they're in there for 15 minutes. And then like they're trying to peel off to get to another patient. It's like, well, hold on. You just dropped something on me that I want to ask you 20 more questions after. And like, they're not there for it. So you don't feel like they're on that journey with you. And you just feel like oh my gosh, I got 30 seconds to say all this. And then like, hopefully they're going to respond and, give me some sort of like relief or an answer or somewhere where I can go to learn more. And that's just simply not the case. And so, so I think that people really do need to get a little bit more deeper into that. And as you mentioned too, with gut health, I'm super interested in all of that because I was diagnosed with, as I mentioned, celiac disease like 25 years ago. And so immediately, like when my injury happened too, before reaching out to you guys again, like I can feel it in my gut right away, but maybe that's because I have already had a sensitive gut. Like, I don't know. This is just more complete anecdotal, but I'm like, I already felt like the inflammation and the bloating in my gut before, almost being like at super severe pain level. It just like, it started to, that was where I was feeling the symptoms, which was interesting.
Yeah. And I think kind of across the board, one of the biggest complaints my patients come to me with is they just don't feel like themselves. And they've gone to their primary care doctor, they've seen the specialist, and they bring me their blood work. And I'm like, this is not enough. Like you mentioned, Lindsay, our blood work looks at your sex hormones, your cortisol level, your thyroid hormones, your vitamins, and your inflammation. In functional medicine,
Yeah.
we believe that inflammation leads to chronic diseases. And if the body isn't inflamed, it will not heal properly. And so just getting that blood work can tell us so much about what's going on in the body.
Yeah. And so I highly recommend that, which also reminds me too of probably due for another like blood work testing with you guys anyways, especially since it's kind of been a little bit since my injury. And I also want to see where I'm at as well, because there's also progress. It's interesting, like, to also see data just from a standpoint of also like progress too, not necessarily like, oh, my B12 levels are low or my thyroid is low or my cortisol is high. Like, it's cool to like take blood tests and 6 months later see how things have helped you. And then it encourages one or me, like even to just be like, okay, that I was right. That was working. And so it just gives you a little bit more confidence, with yourself, with your practitioner, to just sort of keep leaning in this together. Like it directs you on the right path, that you're working through this, you're doing the right thing, and then if the blood tests come back and nothing really has much changed, then you and your practitioner can talk about it, be like, hey, okay, like let's look at this. Maybe it is a little tweak here or there. So blood work is just, it's so good to just like to understanding just what's going on under the hood.
Yeah. And life happens. Sometimes I have patients that come in during their consults and they will tell me honestly, oh, I haven't been the best about my supplements because, A and B happened. But then I'm like, it's okay, no worries. And we look at the blood work, and we say, okay, these are what your body needs. And we kind of reset. And you're 100% right, Lindsay. People get excited when their blood work changes, when their hormones changes, when they come in for an in-body and they see the changes in their body composition. And so then what was, maybe could have been like a chore to take the supplements, patients have now formed this lifestyle and they're seeing improvements and they want to continue the regimen. So it's really remarkable to see patients come in day one frustrated and, a few weeks later, a few months later, after following protocol, the change in the blood work, they become this new person. They start to feel like themselves again. I think that's my favorite part about being a provider is the changes. But yes, one of the many beautiful things that we do offer here at Eternity Health Partners is that, of course, if you are here locally in beautiful Santa Barbara, you can come see me in office. But we do offer telehealth visits as well as phone calls.
And that was beautiful. Like, yeah, if you do live in Santa Barbara or in the area, you want to go visit, like I have a beautiful office and beautiful energy and just the team over there. Super amazing.
Yeah.
But I was also equally so grateful that when my injury happened in Texas, I could just, like make a phone call and just connect with you guys right away. And have that discussion about my health via telehealth too, so that it's like, it's accessible and that you don't feel like I felt like I had support and I felt like I had it fairly quickly when I needed it most too. So that was really, that just, like I said, it felt helpful. I felt safe, and I felt, comforted and taken care of, and not like, again, on guard, like I would normally if I like walked into a doctor, or hobbled in rather at this point to a doctor's office and be like, I'm skeptical of you all, but I need help.
Yeah. And unfortunately too, yeah, my husband had to go see his primary care just to get a physical for work. And the next appointment was October 6th. So, here on Eternity Health Partners, we are able to get our patients in quickly and accommodate their schedule, whether it is a telehealth visit, a phone call, or an in-person visit.
Yeah, I love the accessibility of it these days. And again, like, even though I'm going to say it again too, it's like things are becoming more accessible, right? Taking care of your health, and but also I think still being mindful of who is important too, because we I strive to just look for those who really do care about one's health, and holds the quality of, whether it's their products or just their facilitators, to the highest of standards. Some of the things that have helped me on my health journey, not only from the beginning, but also at different, health journey points. I've been in a relationship with Eternity Health Partners for 15 years. Is like the first time, 15 years ago was the first time that, I met everybody there at the office, and I was just on a different health journey. So I was on more of a, vegetarian or pescatarian diet rather. And so then through blood work, I realized things that I was deficient in and all these things, but also that journey meant, diving more into intuitive healing and my health. Like, I knew how to move my body and exercise as an athlete since I was 5, martial artist, gymnast, and then also becoming, fitness instructor, from, personal training to group training classes, and teaching people, kickboxing classes and all these things. And I think like the biggest takeaway that I've had on my own health journey is anytime there's a flare up, like anytime, and by flare up, I mean something that, like, what people come to you, Vanessa, about is just like, I don't know what's happening. Like, I feel off, and then this is what's happening. So anytime that those moments happen to me, my first sort of reaction is just simplify. What are your basics, right? The basics is good sleep. The basics is good food and eating, right? And what is that? We'll get into that in a second, brief overview. How am I stressed out? Like, just ask yourself is, how can I, de-stress without trying to find all these de-stress modalities, and then, it works against itself, and then you stress yourself out because you're trying to de-stress. So not talking about that. And then also just, getting outside, being in nature, and just, sort of breathing in fresh air, and also exercise, but in a simple form, like, so going back to the nutrition thing, you don't have to create all these recipes and like all of these trendy things such as, gelatin, even though it's amazing for you, for your gut health. And I'm sure you guys are going to get into that with your gut health, but like, you don't have to do all these recipes. It's like, what is the most simple thing that you can make consistently boring to just like simplify, get rid of the noise? Because I find that like the more complicated you make it, the more noise there's going to be in it. It's just too much. So it's like kind of like you would spring clean your house. You would just spring clean everything that's like, in your brain, in your cabinet, and just go very simple. And I find animal-based diet to be a very basic, simple, holistic way of eating, because you get everything, nutrients, mineral, the most nutrient dense foods on the planet come from, animal foods when sourced properly, quality. That's a whole nother story. That's my realm. That's what I do is animal-based eating and diet, but also like just making sure you're getting proper sleep without disruption, and doing that consistently every day. And just like that gets you to this baseline of being able to then listen to your body, because then it starts to tell you sort of where it needs support. And then if you still continue to feel like, I'm so lost, you can start to see a little bit more signs of what it is, as opposed to just overall feeling like foggy brain, or overall feeling just like in pain. It's like, okay, well, where is it actually? stemming from, then these are the conversations that could be more helpful and valuable with, facilitators and or autonomy health partners like yourself, because you're a little bit more specific rather than just like, well, here's everything. Like, I'm just going to put this on your table, figure it out. You can actually start taking more hold of your health and putting it into your own hands, because you've simplified everything in your life to just be like, let me just get the basics down. Good sleep, clean diet, and that means, minimal processed foods, like no alcohol, like, are you getting enough sleep? Like, these things are so powerful in the road to just recovery, or on the road to just optimal health, or on the road to just again, you have these blips in your life that as you age, certain things appear, and hormones are different, and you just need to always be evolving with them and always be listening. And a great way to listen is just lessen the noise, do things simple, and then, when things appear, then we can opt for help if we need it.
Yeah, kind of just going off what Lindsay was saying. Yeah, you really want to always go back to those 4 pillars. Those are the 4 foundations of health. And even during my consults, I do try to tie that in together with the blood work. Like Lindsay said, we do give you tips and tricks to how to go about sleep hygiene. If you're not sleeping well, that is really going to impact your energy, your mood the next day. And then we do talk about diet, based on your weight, your body, how much protein, fiber, water, minerals that you should be getting per day. And if you're not, if you're calorie restricting, you're not getting enough minerals, that can put a huge role on your health. And then we do talk about, yes, the central nervous system, based on your cortisol, is your body in fight or flight? And we do try to give supplements and exercises that patients can use to regulate and put their body back into that parasympathetic rest and digest, because that's also then going to go back to coordinating our gut. And then we do talk about proper exercising, that what we believe works the best in functional medicine, strength training, and how that really, for us in functional medicine, muscle is liquid gold. So really doing all the things to maintain your muscle mass, that's really going to support your hormones, your blood sugar, your bones. And so kind of what Lindsay was saying, sometimes it is just to go back to the basics. And how do we support you here at Eternity Health Partner with those 4 pillars of life?
Yeah. And I think, Vanessa is just talking about muscle, maintaining muscle and through via exercise and proper amount of protein is huge. And especially, for women who don't often think that that's important. But I think if anything, to add to just, keeping things simple, but also keeping things where, muscle is definitely a priority for overall health is very important. And I think that was kind of one of the things too that I came to you about body composition as well, because I was nervous that if I didn't work out, because if I were to work out, then maybe I'd cause more inflammation, and then that could be a problem to my recovery, that I would lose muscle, especially at this age, at 40. And so I felt like the peptides were going to be helpful. I mean, again, also going back to the other, keep it simple, have a proper diet, exercise right, and all these things. I've been doing that since I was, 5. Pretty much that was my life. But still, I always had this fear because I was sporty. It was like, oh no, maybe I'll lose muscle if I stop for a few months, exercising or lifting weights. And so, so I do feel as well, even though those are really important, the peptides also probably wouldn't have been as helpful as they were if my foundation, if the simple basics were not there. So I say this all about, my story and everything, but I think it's also largely due to the foundation of just a healthy lifestyle, which you guys also promote to make sure that people are having that underlying basic terrain there. And then, including tools that can also help optimize and then get you kind of to the level and to the goals that you want. So, so I really appreciate that, and just because I myself, being active for so long, like, it's always good to hear. It's never not good to hear.
So here at Eternity Health Partners, we always try to go above and beyond for our patients and try to make it as easy as possible for them, whether it's contacting us, setting up a visit, or figuring out what type of peptides are best for them. And so we actually have a tool here that can help navigate and assist which peptide is best to get you closer to your goals. To all of our future and previous patients at Eternity Health Partners, please feel free to reach out, whether that's through Instagram, a phone call, email. We are here to help you get you to your goals and achieve optimal health in any way possible. And I just want to thank you so much, Lindsay, for your time and sharing your story and letting us help you through this journey.
Of course, yeah. Any chance I can get to share my story and help others is just, it's meaningful work for me too. So thank you so much for having me.